Hey everybody, welcome back to A Matter of Life and Maiden, the podcast of the Beast. I am Joe Labriola, and this is episode 25, Ranking Steve's Epics Continued. This is part 2. And I just want to say, after sitting here and going through the songs and thinking about it, I was going to do the remaining 12 songs in this episode, part 2, but I truly think that I'm going to do a part 3 with the top 5. So today I'm just going to go through number 12 down to number 6, and then I'm going to do a Ranking Steve's Epics, episode 25 of the podcast, part 3, with the top 5 Steve Epics, in my opinion. So, just to recap from last time, number 23 was Mother Russia, 22 was Prodigal Son, 21 Fear of the Dark, 20 Afraid to Shoot Strangers, 19 Lost in a Lost World, 18 When the Wild Wind Blows, 17 No More Lies, 16 The Klansman, 15 Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, 14 Sign of the Cross, and I left off on part 1 of episode 25 with 13, which was For the Greater Good of God. Now we're going to dive into number 12. And at number 12, Ranking Steve's Epics, solo pen songs by Steve, Death of the Celts at number 12. Now, the reason I put this at number 12 is, I just want to say this. I made this list when I was on a really big Senjutsu kick. So a lot of this stuff might shift and transfer and move around, down the line. But I was really digging Senjutsu at the time, and I still love the record. I think it's amazing. So right now, number 12 for me is going to be Death of the Celts. It's from, like I said, the Senjutsu record that came out in 2021. It's 10 minutes and 20 seconds long. This song is, how can I sum it up? It's a modern modification from stuff that Steve wrote in the past and the band has displayed on their longer, more proggy, epic songs. It's almost like the Klansman and Isle of Avalon kind of mixed together, and it takes all the best parts from those songs and combines them. So there's a similar acoustic bass intro riff to the Klansman. Then it goes into some harmonized guitar parts with the some subtle drum accents from Nico. Then there's an acoustic bass riff, like I said, and a guitar melody, a different one from the initial. Then Bruce comes in with the road, it winds uphill all the way, ride to glory on this day, into this other transition, which is the burden of blood, the breaketh of bone, into a section where the last line he says is, praying the rose is still awake. Then it gets super heavy. The band comes in. He's still singing verse lines, but it's heavier now. And it's Lord above, my spirit says, death has no power, no more, no less. That kind of stuff. It's super amazing. Like I said, in subject and tone, it does have kind of that same feel as Klansman and Isle of Avalon. And that kind of historical stuff that Steve explores in regards to the United Kingdom and the history there. So the Scottish independence and Klansman, Isle of Avalon, English mythology or Britannic mythology or Welsh mythology, that whole idea. And then this is about the Celts, the Celtic people who were all slaughtered by Romans and all those things back in the day. So it's really cool, and it's super historically inspired, and it does a really good job of setting the tone that way. Then there's so many shifts in the song and musical ideas that just work so well, and it's so complete. Maiden and Steve have become this just powerhouse of churning out these accentuated, almost orchestral and arranged progressive metal, progressive rock pieces since the reunion. And this is a prime example of that. Like I said, another shift comes up, and Bruce comes in with spirits, call for the God from the grave. into this whole bit, and then at the end it's like, dying, a warrior Celt has no fear, immortal, for he will live evermore. There's that whole bit. Then it goes into Adrian's solo, which is amazing, into another interlude, and like this bass guitar gallop. It's like it's interesting. Into an instrumental section, in the Yan solo, then into Dave's solo, and then it comes back after Dave into another Adrian Smith solo. So, in terms of guitar work on this record, in particular, like Senjutsu, and in these epics that Steve wrote, I mean, you kind of see this in the Book of Souls too. We'll get to that later. But they're doing there's 3 guitarists in the band, and they're doing multiple solos in these songs. It's not just like three solos anymore. It's like 4, sometimes 5 solos in some of the songs we'll see. It's amazing. And that's stuff that they were doing back with like A Matter of Life and Death too. Kind of really doing that thing, and Dance of Death in some songs too, where like everybody has a solo. But in this, it's like people were getting 2 solos. Like every guitar player might have one, and then Adrian might have one, or Dave might have another one, or Ian might have another one. It's amazing. It's amazing. As a guitar player, that's why I love this song so much, because there's a lot of really cool, intricate guitar work in it, and I think it's awesome, and it fits into like that, like I said, the arrangement of the song perfectly. It just sounds amazing. It's fantastic. It's amazing. It's an amazing modification of stuff that they've done from the past, and just improves upon it. Like, it's amazing. I'm not saying it's like exponentially better than stuff they did before it, but like for a new record and a new album, it's insane to me. Like it's some of the best shit they've ever done. Like, this record is so good. Like, just sitting here talking about it, it's so good. And this song is an example of that. Then there's a cool bridge after all the solo stuff goes down. And then there's this back in the Bruce, dying, a warrior Celt has no fear. But it's like a little bit slower. It's like, immortal, for he will live evermore. Back into the acoustic bass and guitar intro riff. And then the cool part of the song is Bruce sings like the last verse, and like the last couple lines of the last verse are, following those who came from hell, came to witness the death of the Celts. Back into that acoustic bass guitar intro to a close. It's just one of those songs that takes something from the past. Now, granted, I will agree that some people said like this might be Klansman Part 2, but like I don't think in a bad way. Like, Steve writes about stuff he's passionate about. I mean, if you're going to sit there and argue that, like, oh, well, it's Klansman Part 2, well, the first 3 Iron Maiden albums are about horror. So, like, what are you going to say? They ripped themselves off? Like, oh, well, the first album had murder and monsters on it with Phantom of the Opera and killing. And Killers had Genghis Khan and Ides of March and Killers. And Number of the Beast had stuff about the devil and the occult. It's the same thing. Like, they're going to, like, write about their interests. And like I said, that motif is about, like, British history and, like, the British Isles. And I think it's really cool. And for that, that's why I love it so much. Not only is the subject matter cool to me because I'm a historian, not only is the song really well constructed and epic in a way that suits guitar players who love music, because I'm a guitar player as well, it's just a super cool, complete song. And like I said, it's a modern modification on stuff from the past, and it checks all the boxes. Is it the best song? No, but it's a phenomenal song, and it really, Matt said this before, and I'll say it about this song and some of these other ones, and even some of the ones that I did before this on the first episode of episode 25, part 1. Like, you need everybody in the band to play this song. Need everyone. Need all the guitar players. It's a 6-piece band now, and these songs are designed to be that way, and this is a prime example. I love it. I love it. But moving on from Death of the Celts, now this one here is super special to me, and after listening to this recently, number 11 for me is To Tame a Land from the Peace of Mind record in 1983. It's about 7 minutes, 26 seconds. This song has grown on me exponentially, like I said, over the years. I love Peace of Mind as a record, and I know I'm talking about Tame of Land here, but Tame of Land, Dune, it's based on Dune, the science fiction novel by Frank Herbert. Dune is one of my favorite science fiction novels of all time. I mean, it's like top 3 for me. It's like Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, Asimov's Foundation, and like Dune. Like, I love Dune. And Dune, I mean, they're interchangeable. I'm partial to Heinlein, so like I love his writing, but I can't sit here and argue that Dune might be the most epic out of all 3 of those that I just mentioned, and one of the most epic science fiction novels ever made. So, and the movies are amazing too. The 1984 one, and then the new one that Denis Villeneuve did in 2021 was insanely good. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but this entire song, and I'm going to talk about the final word here at the end, because I really want to hit this home with this record and this song. It starts off with this majestic Middle Eastern opening, which is just outstanding. They really haven't done anything like it. The closest thing that comes to this in the later years is probably Nomad from the Brave New World record. But, like, this is just a perfected version of it. This song is unbelievable. And that motif, that Middle Eastern riff, or that melody at the beginning, really sets the tone and really paints the picture of the book Dune. You feel like you're on Arrakis. You feel like you're on Dune. Like, it's an amazing song. And after that really cool Middle Eastern opening, it goes into this super heavy riff that for the time in 1983, they just came off the heels of Number of the Beast. This record, now, like I said, I'm going to talk about this and probably exhaust it. I'm probably going to talk about Peace of Mind. This record is so progressive for the time. Like, it's so progressive. And I kind of want to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but like, we talk about Power Slave in the podcast and how it's so great and gargantuan, and it is. It really set them apart. Peace of Mind and Somewhere in Time are more proggy than Power Slave, in my opinion. And I think that might be why they're overlooked a lot. But I think they're underrated. Like, they are just as good as Power Slave. You can't discount Power Slave for, like, their peak. I mean, it pushed them to the stratosphere. But it's records like Peace of Mind and Somewhere in Time that are just, I mean, immaculate. They are immaculate records. And this is one that just has that about it. There's some magic to it, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. But anyway, the verse comes in after that heavy riff, and Bruce is like, he is the king of all the land and the kingdom of the sands in a time tomorrow. That whole part. And there's some crazy Middle Eastern interludes under the verse. Phenomenal lyrics in this song, like from Steve. He literally is taking like stuff from the appendices and like the definitions of what the words actually mean in this language that Frank Herbert created for Dune, and he's putting them in the song. Like Gom Jabbar, Swizz Haderach, like all these different words. It's amazing. It's amazing. You can tell Steve really loved the book. And then at the end of that, there's verses, like the part where Bruce is like, he's the ruler of the stars, and screams it. Then it goes into this like, like this really amazing bridge. And my favorite part of the entire song, and I'm going to say the whole freaking part because I love this part of the song. The time will come for him to lay claim his crown, and then the foe, yes, they'll be cut down. You'll see, he'll be the best that there's been, Messiah supreme, true leader of men. And then like Nico comes in with the hi-hat, it's like, and he's like emulating the lyrics. And when the time for judgment's at hand, don't fret, he's strong, he'll make a stand against evil fire that spread through the land. He has the power to make it all end. And Bruce just screams it. Another interlude. Nico's drumming in this is fucking astounding. Like, this song and this record really highlight his drumming. Listen to Tame a Land, like, it really accentuates Nico's drumming. That and Where Eagles Dare from this album. Like, the first song and the last song, like, Clive couldn't do this. Like, nothing against Clive, great drummer for the records he was on, but Nico kills it in this freaking song. It's unbelievable. And then it shifts to another gear, and there's like a faster riff. It's pretty much the same riff that they were just playing, but it's faster. It's like they play it faster. Then it goes into Davy's solo, and then Adrian's solo, which this is one song on Peace of Mind that I think Adrian's solo is actually better than Davy's. It's just a little bit more dynamic. And then drum fills from Nico again, back into that Middle Eastern desert-sounding intro riff to close out the song. The song is unbelievable. And this is what I wanted to say about this song and Peace of Mind as a whole. Like, this album is just, it gives you a feeling of wonder. It reminds me, personally, of, like, being a kid and just being awestruck about everything, like just discovering things, like being fascinated by discovering new information. Like it's almost like that feeling of discovery when you go and you find something and it's like, holy shit, I just discovered this. It's amazing. Like an example I can give is like when I first went to like the local planetarium when I was a kid, and I went in there and I sat there and like the really cool voices talking and like going over all the stars in the night sky. Like this song and this record takes you back to that kind of like youthfulness, gives you that like that nostalgia trip, and it takes you back to being a kid. It takes you back to 1983. It's rooted in the 80s, this record and the song, but the thing that's great about it is it's almost like it simultaneously, although it's rooted in the 80s, opens this portal to the future. Like, this is one song that I could hear on newer stuff from Maiden. This song is one of those songs that Maiden would take and like use it. Like the formula from this song is something that they would use in the future on a lot of more progressive stuff that they did. You can hear parts of Brave New World on this. You can hear parts of A Matter of Life and Death, The Final Frontier, Book of Souls, Senjutsu. It's a record and it's a song that is just incredible. It's perfect. Like, it's a perfect song. It's unbelievable. And like I said, Peace of Mind just has a magic about it. I don't know what it is. There's almost like, you know, when I listen to Peace of Mind as a record, and when I get to this song, To Tame a Land, at the very end, and it closes, like, it's perfect. I'm like, what the hell just happened? It's almost like I'm witnessing or seeing in my head my life flash before my eyes, and I can literally just see myself as a kid, and like this reel in my head is playing, and it's fast forwarding, and then I end up like just reaching a place where I'm growing from being a kid to my teenage years to then an adult, and then me in the present, like looking in the mirror, like that. This record gives you that. It's one of those records and that really does that. And the great thing about this is there's magic in it because it's not as gargantuan as Power Slave. There's something special in that simplicity of it. Like the simplicity of not having this gargantuan release and the Live After Death accompaniment and, you know, the mighty 2 Minutes to Midnight and Power Slave and Rhyme and Aces High stuff. Like there's something about not having all of that extra stuff that makes this amazing. And looking at it here, I think the reason why it's in number 11 for me is just because I haven't seen it live. I'm going to see Future Past in 2024 next year, and I'm going to see a lot of the songs, pretty much all of them, that I've wanted to see from the Somewhere in Time record, and a lot of the deeper cuts from Senjutsu, so I'm going to be super content. After that, and seeing that live, I can say that there's probably only one song that I would absolutely love to see live, and I wish they would play, and it's To Tame a Land. I really hope that they play To Tame a Land. Like, it is the one song from the 80s that I would love to see, and I think it's It's an amazing song. And they could easily fit it in the set if they took out Fear the Dark or something. Like I said, it's not that long. It's only 7 minutes and 26 seconds. A little bit longer than Fear the Dark. So, I mean, that's easy to change up. It's like 10 seconds longer than Fear the Dark. If you put it in the set, I'd love to see it. Moving on from To Tame a Land, number 10 is Infinite Dreams from the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son record that came out in 1988. This one's only 6 minutes and 8 seconds long. Now, the reason I put this song at number 10 is just because, again, like I said in the first episode of this, episode 25, first part of it, this is like personal preference in some of these instances, and like what I prefer, little subtle things that I love. And this song might not be technically as savvy as a lot of the other ones that came before it, but in terms of lyrics and what it makes you think about when you listen to it, it's absolutely epic in every sense of the word that way. It's one of the greatest lyrical songs Iron Maiden has ever done. And to kind of talk about it here, it's a reflection of your mind, your body, and your soul. When I listen to the song, it makes me think about being a human being and what it means to be alive. It has an amazing guitar opening. The synths and the keyboards add so much to the depth of this song. Like I said, lyrics are absolutely perfect. It's deeply philosophical. It makes you think about really everything. It makes you think about, like, why are we here? What are we doing? What's life about? What do I need to do to be happy? What is this? Like, all that stuff. My favorite part of the song is, would you like to know the truth of what's out there to have the proof and find out just which side you're on? Where would you end? In heaven? And then Bruce says, or in hell. There's amazing guitar stuff underneath the parts. Really concise playing. Nick goes drumming in the entire song, and there's like a bridge that comes up right after that, or in hell part. His drums are unbelievable. His drumming on this record is fantastic. Whole band jumps back in. Then there's a little section with guitar harmonies into this another transition where Bruce is saying, help me to find my true self without seeing the future, save me. That whole section. Then it goes into Davy's solo, immediately into Adrian's solo, back into this harmony riff. And it plays the harmony riff, and there's like an instrumental part. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son as a record is a really instrumental album. There's a lot of instrumentation on this record. And then after that, it goes into the last verse section that is just fucking mind-blowing. Like, it's unbelievable. Bruce is like, there's got to be more to it than this. Tell me, why do we exist? I'd like to think that when I die, I get a chance, another time, to return and live again, reincarnate, play the game again and again and again and again. And like the whole thing fades out. It's just an amazing song. Like I said, a reflection of mind, body, and soul. This song is all-encompassing, engrossing. It really makes you think about yourself. It really makes you look internally at yourself and like think about your beliefs and your faith, and not in a bad way, in a way that makes you want to explore it and ask questions, like in a really good way. And it's this song that is monumental that way, and that's why I love it. It's my favorite song from Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, Infinite Dreams. And I think after listening to it here, I think this might be the reason why Seventh Son is probably my least favorite records from the Bruce era in the 80s. It's because it is a pretty musical record, and there's not a lot of spoken words on it in a lot of these songs, besides Infinite Dreams, and that's probably why it's my favorite song from the album. I like to hear Bruce with the music. I like the lyrics. And I think, to go back to like Death of the Celts, there's a lot of music on that too, and a lot of like instrumental stuff, but it's just more refined. I think Seventh Son was a really cool experiment that way, and I know I said this before, but like during the History of Iron Maiden Part 3 on the 1988 Seventh Son of a Seventh Son Made in England DVD that was released, the behind-the-scenes extra features, Bruce is talking about Seventh Son, and he's like, the clay for Somewhere in Time was just being sculpted. We haven't fully formed it yet. But then you have Seventh Son, and we're like, boom, here's the full sculpture, here's the whole thing. From a point where he's talking about a concept, okay, I get that. But I don't think, in terms of like song structure and like just a really strong collection of songs, I don't think Seventh Son is as good as Somewhere in Time, or any of the stuff that came before it either. Like, that's why it's my least favorite record from the 80s, with the Bruce era lineup. So I don't know, like, I don't want to go off on a tangent too much, talk about Seventh Son, but it's interesting to me after I'm kind of doing these rankings to be like, okay, now I get it. This is why I like some of these songs, and why I like songs with lyrics and stuff that's meaningful, and it's not just all music. Or if it is all music, I like it more refined, and I like it, you know, a certain way, or I want to hear this, or I want to hear that. Like, it's interesting to me, like, discovering this stuff as I do these podcast episodes, so I just wanted to say that. Anyway, moving on from number 10, which was Infinite Dreams, we arrive at number 9, which is Blood Brothers, from the Brave New World record, which came out in the year 2000. This is the reunion. This is when Bruce came back, and Adrian came back, and Yannick stayed, and then they ended up having 3 guitarists and a 6-piece band. Blood Brothers is 7 minutes and 14 seconds long. Blood Brothers is a song that, we talked about this on the podcast before, Brave New World doesn't really have a true quote-unquote epic. If there were an epic on Brave New World, it would be Blood Brothers. But this is a solo song on the record that Steve penned himself, so that's why it's here in this list. And it comes in at number 9 because it is just incredible. Incredible. And I'm probably going to echo a little bit of stuff here, maybe not so much to the extent that I said with Peace of Mind and Entertainment Land, but just a little bit here before I dive into the song Blood Brothers. Brave New World as a record is one of those records that just, everything about it is good. If I were to hand somebody a record from the 80s and a record from the reunion, and I was like, hey, these are what you want to listen to if you want to get an Iron Maiden, I would hand them a copy of Peace of Mind, and I would hand them a copy of Brave New World. They are like the 2 most eclectic, diverse, and well-rounded records in the Maiden catalog. They're not necessarily thematic like some of the other albums they have are. Like, you know, just to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, like A Matter of Life and Death is about war and religion. Seventh Son's a concept album, right? Book of Souls has some stuff about Mayan culture in it that's kind of like loosely alluded to. Same thing with Senjutsu and some of the stuff. Final Frontier has a lot of like science fiction-y bits to it. Somewhere in Time has this kind of like dystopian future sci-fi motif. That kind of thing. Peace of Mind is more eclectic. Brave New World is more eclectic. Like every song on the record is about something different for the most part. And that's what makes those 2 records so incredible and so timeless. So like I said, if I were to get somebody into Maiden, I would hand them a copy of Peace of Mind and Brave New World. And I've done this before. I've got people into the band. My brother with Brave New World. Matt got me into Maiden with Peace of Mind. And Flight of Icarus, The Trooper. A lot of songs like that. And Brave New World. It's funny. He got me in Wicker Man and Ghost of the Navigator. Some of the first songs I ever heard. So that's how I got into them. And that's how I would get other people into them. Because I think there's a little bit of something there for everyone on those 2 albums. Anyway, moving forward from what I just said about those 2 records, and we're talking about Blood Brothers. This song has an amazing, catchy opening riff. Bruce has this really, and if you're taking a walk through the garden of life, what do you think you'd expect you would see? It's like a mirror reflecting the moves of your life, and in the river reflections of me. That whole part. And there's a line that says, and for a moment a glimpse of my father I see, and in a movement he beckons to me. This song was allegedly written by Steve about his father, who had passed away around the time Brave New World was being written, or when it came out, that record. So he dedicated this song to his dad, and I think it's a really good tribute to his father, and it's kind of become an anthem now for Iron Maiden fans when they go to shows. You know, Bruce has come out and he's been like, hey, this is a song for you. This is what he says on Rock in Rio. Rock in Rio version of this song is fucking mind-blowing. It's one of the high points of that live DVD and that live concert. They play it on the Final Frontier when they talk about, they dedicated it to Ronnie James Dio, one of the greatest heavy metal vocalists, heavy metal icons of all time. One of my favorites. So they dedicated it to people who were going through tragic times. They talked about when Japan had an earthquake. They dedicated it to those people. They dedicated it when I saw them last year, when they played it, to just like people who were out there saying you can't do this or can't do that. And they did it on the Book of Souls when they played it. They dedicated it and saying, you know, life's about music and life's about love and life's about camaraderie. It's not about killing people and hurting people and being a dick towards people, that kind of thing. So they use it kind of like an anthem to be like, hey, look, this is what Iron Maiden's about. This is what metal music should be about. And this is what the song is about. It's about, you know, appreciating one another and appreciating the life you live and that kind of thing. And quit treating people like shit and quit comparing yourself to other people. And why do you always have to slight other people? That kind of thing. So for that, the song has a special place just because of that. Anyway, back into what I was saying about the Garden of Life section, into the chorus, we're blood brothers, back into the verse. Then it goes into this catchy, melodic opening riff in this bridge, where Bruce is like, there are times when I feel I'm afraid for the world, there are times I'm ashamed of a soul, when you're floating on all the emotion you feel, and reflecting the good in the bad. Will we ever know what the answer to life really is? Can you really tell me what life is? Now, it's interesting to me just sitting here singing that part, because I kind of talked about how it's talking about like treating fellow man with respect and dignity, and that's part of the song. I mean, that's part of that lyric I just sang. But it's interesting how I put Infinite Dreams at number 10 and this at number 9, because it's almost like the same kind of vibe. It's like, hey, what are we here for? Are we here where Infinite Dreams is more like questioning kind of thing? Like, what am I doing here? This is more like, why am I here? And why do we treat people like shit? That's kind of what this song's about. It dives a little bit deeper than Infinite Dreams that way. So, it's interesting how, like, I don't know, subconsciously or something, I put like 10 and 9 that way on the list. I just think it's really cool. And then after that verse that I sang, it goes back into the chorus. Then it goes into Davy's solo. There's another bridge and another interlude. Then there's another transition into this really cool melody that Ian plays on the guitar. The same like vocal, and then Bruce comes in with a vocal line that emulates the melody. When we think that we've used all our chances, and the chance to make everything right, keep on making the same old mistakes, makes on tipping the balance so easy. When we're living our lives on the edge, say a prayer on the Book of the Dead. That whole vocal line, and then Ian goes back into the same melody line he played before, but it's a little heavier. It's a little bit more harmony. And then it just builds, and Ian goes into the solo. And in my opinion, this is one of Ian's greatest solos ever. Normally when he plays some of the solos on like Dance of Death and some of the songs where he's kind of like throwing a solo in, he plays like kind of fast, it's really vigorous, he's very aggressive. This one for him is like more melodic, more subtle, and more dynamic, and it's probably one of his best, if not his best solo ever, in my opinion. And after Ian's amazing solo that builds off of those verse lines and that melody line, it goes back into the chorus, and then back into the opening riff, and then Bruce ends it with just that amazing, if you're taking a walk through the Garden of Life, and then it kind of just fades out with these little subtle instrumental accents. I mean, this song is beautiful. It's a beautiful song, and how I would describe it is, it's It's heavy, it's ambient, it's emotional, and it's just perfectly balanced. It's a really good balance of old Maiden from the 80s with the aggression, and then this really sets the tone for the new stuff too. It takes the proggy stuff that I talked about from like To Tame a Land and what I talked about on previous podcast episodes from like Somewhere in Time, and it just meshes and melds it so well. It is this song, and like I said, Brave New World, this record, there's not a bad song on Brave New World, and that is why this song is like a shining example of that. In my opinion, it's the best song on the record, and it just has this cohesiveness of all those things. It has everything. It's heavy, it's ambient, it's emotional, it's really well balanced. The guitar parts are phenomenal, the melody lines are amazing, there's a lot of dynamic shifts and changes in it. It's a phenomenal song, and that's why it's at number 9. If you get a chance to listen to it, check it out. They play it live on Rock in Rio, which in my opinion is the definitive version if you're watching the live performance of it. It's also really good on the En Vivo concert, and it's really good on the Book of Souls live chapter. It's fantastic, so check that out. And those 3 versions of it are incredible, and obviously the album version is amazing too, so listen to it. It's a phenomenal song. Moving on from Blood Brothers, number 8 is Hell on Earth from Senjutsu, again, 2021. It's 11 minutes and 19 seconds long. It's just a epic song in every sense of the word. It's a little bit shorter than some of the other songs that we're going to talk about down the line here, but it's right in that sweet spot between like Sign of the Cross length and Rime of the Ancient Mariner length. It's right in that sweet spot, and it's a long song, 11 minutes and 19 seconds. I mean, it's epic. It's progressive in every sense of the word. And the thing that's great about this song is it doesn't feel like it's 11 minutes and 19 seconds long, because it's so beautiful, and it paints this vivid picture of this dystopian future we live in that we could actually become. It's almost like, it reminds me of kind of like the Fallout video games, where like people were setting off warheads, and like there's all this radiation poisoning, and the world's in ashes and it's crumbling and that kind of thing. And talks about having armed children in the world, like people are having guns now and all this stuff. Like we're slowly reverting to the third world. We're not, like, everybody is just gonna we're gonna become like mercenaries, and we're gonna become bandits, and we're gonna become savages, like that whole kind of thing, that whole motif that Steve writes about a lot. But this in particular does it in a really cool way. And if I had to sum up the song before I dive into it, it's beautifully gloomy. That's kind of what I would call Hell on Earth. The way it sounds and the way it's written, it's beautifully gloomy. Like, it just adds this almost sadness to it, but it's beautiful, like the way it is. It has a similar vibe in the opening too, in a way. It's very similar to like When the Wild Wind Blows from the Final Frontier record. But I think this is a better version. It's a more improved. Almost like what I said with Death of the Celts, how it like combined the ideas of Klansman, Isle of Avalon, and some other things. This kind of takes like When the Wild Wind Blows, that kind of ideology, and just makes it better. It's almost like if you were to take When the Wild Wind Blows and let's say like The Legacy or something from A Matter of Life and Death, and melded those two kind of like ideas together, like subject matter ideas, you would get Hell on Earth. Like, that's what you would get. And I think it's incredible. There's an ambient melody playing at the very beginning. Steve's on his acoustic bass again. There's a lot of acoustic stuff in the Senjutsu record. There's a lot of acoustic play on this record. Death of the Celts, Hell on Earth. Talk about some other songs down the line. Even, some of the singles, like Writing on the Wall, like an acoustic version with Adrian at the beginning. There's a lot of acoustic play on this record. And it's awesome because it's different. It changes it up. Nico's drums, after that like acoustic-y riff and opening, kick off this super heavy new riff into this really cool melody riff on the guitars that emulate Bruce's verse lines, and Bruce comes in with beginning of a sunrise burns a big hole in the sky, that whole part. Then he goes on, and there's like this really cool accent, because he goes, pray upon the weak no more, the spirits of those who are gone. Like, there's like pray, that word pray, that accent, like it's super cool, because that one's like more aggressive and heavy, and then he goes back into like a more like consistent singing straightforwardness. It's awesome. Like, it's so cool. Even just that little one word accentuation vocally, it's incredible. And then it kind of ends with like side oblivion with that hell on earth, and then there's like this like little pre-chorus kind of thing, or chorus if you want to call it. All you have been, all you have seen, lost in somewhere in your dreams, and the angels, they have fallen, and now nothing's what it seems. That whole section, I mean, it's amazing. And then there's another section, there's another interlude and instrumental transition. It's, I wish I could go back, I'll never be the same again. On hell on earth, that whole thing. And then there's a couple things with that, and then it goes into Davy's solo on this song is fucking amazing. It reminds me of like Where Eagles Dare. Like, it reminds me of his Where Eagles Dare solo. It's kind of similar to that, but like different in a way. It's more progressive-y sounding. He has this amazing like long whammy, like drawn out whammy solos. It's one of his best solos in the modern Maiden era for the last couple albums. I mean, it's that good. It's that fucking good. It's an amazing solo. And then after Davey solos, it immediately goes into Adrian's solo. And then there's a guitar harmony line between the guitarists. Then it goes into another transition that's more quiet and ambient. And then it goes into these real subtle, clean chords and guitar, bass, and drum accents. And there's like this hi-hat thing with Nico. And then Bruce comes in with like my favorite part of the song. It's my favorite part of the song. It's amazing. You dance on the graves who bled for us. Do you think that they'll come for us? Knowledge and virtue taken by lust. Live off the lives of those who you trust. You think that you have all your answers for all. In your arrogant way, only one way to fall. Burning a lamp and a fire in your hands. Taking you further from these lands. And then just this explosion. And on the Future Past tour, they played this year in Europe and over there, like, it comes in with lost in anger, life in danger, love in anger, life in danger, and these flames just keep shooting up. Then it goes into Yan's solo. And then after Yan's solo, it goes back into the lost in anger again. And then after that, it goes back into like one of the earlier melodies from before. And then it goes back into the opening riff and the melody. And then back into the acoustic bass section. Into that acoustic bass riff and guitar riff at the beginning. And then it ends. It's just a incredible song. I don't know, like I said on part 1 of episode 25. These songs are epic for a reason, and it is so hard. Like when I was talking about in part 1, how like there was a step up from Prodigal Son to Fear of the Dark, and then after Afraid to See Strangers, there was another step up to Lost in a Lost World. Everything from number 19, from Lost in a Lost World, When a Wild Wind Blows, No More Lies, Clansman, Seven Sons, Silent Cross, For the Greater Good of God, Death of the Celts, To Tame a Land, Infinite Dreams, Blood Brothers, and now we're at Hell on Earth. I am so excited just sitting here talking about these songs, because they are so epic to me. Like just sitting here reviewing this, there is no band like Iron Maiden. There's nobody like Steve Harris. There's nobody like anybody in the band. There's nobody like Yan. There's nobody like Dave. There's nobody like Adrian. There's nobody like Bruce. There's nobody like Nico. Nobody else besides Iron Maiden can do this stuff, and it's just mind-blowing to me. And the way they ended that record, Senjutsu, and like I said previously at the beginning of this episode, like, I listened to Senjutsu nonstop, and I was on a super all-time high of that record. Now I want to listen to it again. After sitting here and talking about Hell on Earth, I just want to go listen to Senjutsu. Like, this is a beautiful, like I said, a beautiful, gloomy song, and it showcases that whole idea in Senjutsu. It's a really heavy record with really pertinent themes. And I said this when I did the review for Senjutsu, and I talked about Hell on Earth, and I talked about the record. That and A Matter of Life and Death are so mature. They are such mature albums. So deep albums. Like, they're so deep. Because not one or two songs or three songs on the record talk about these mature, deep themes, but it's like every song does. And this is an example of that. This is an example of that maturity in the band. And it's so beautiful to listen to it and see it and be a fan and witness it, because it is amazing that way. But with that being said, I'm going to move on to number 7, which is Alexander the Great. From Somewhere in Time, 1986. The song is 8 minutes and 35 seconds long. This song is incredible. And I want to go back to like To Tame a Lamb when I talk about this, because it has that same kind of thing. Really, I want to talk about me for a second too. I wrote my undergraduate thesis paper. I was a history major at Penn State, and in grad school I wrote a master's thesis that I expanded upon my undergrad thesis from Penn State. I went to IUP for my master's degree in history, and I wrote about Alexander again, and I changed it and amended it and made it. But listening to this song, like, it literally chronologically goes through his exploits, and I'm going to talk about it down the line here. But it opens up with Philip of Macedon, Alexander's father, saying, "My son, ask for thyself another kingdom, for that which I leave is too small for thee." And then it goes into this really cool militaristic marching drum thing with Nico, and then guitar melody comes in underneath it with Adrian, and then the whole band comes in with a new riff. And then Bruce comes in with the vocals. Near to the east, in a part of ancient Greece, in an ancient land called Macedonia, was born the son to Philip of Macedon. The legend, his name was Alexander. That whole part. And it just talks about, it's like giving you a biography of Alexander. It's amazing. And then it goes into the chorus. Alexander the Great, his name struck fear into hearts of men. Alexander the Great became a god amongst mortal men. Then there it goes this riff. Into another verse. But like I said before, like, lyrically, it's super historically accurate. Like, it literally takes stuff that ancient historians wrote about Alexander, people like Arry and Plutarch and Curtius Rufus. Like I said, I wrote a thesis paper on this in undergrad and grad school. And if you listen to the lyrics and look at them, it is so accurate. It's amazing to me. But anyway, it goes back into the chorus after the God amongst mortal men and all that stuff thing, right? After all the verses and things are talked, then it goes into a melody line by Adrian. Then there's a bridge and a little bit of a break, and then Adrian goes back into the melody line. But then this is the building part. He plays the melody line, and it starts building and building and building. And then what happens is Dave comes in, and he plays the same line as Adrian, and they create a harmony line together. And then while the harmony line is going on, Adrian breaks off into his first solo. Then there's a drum fill by Nico. Then Adrian goes into a second part of this solo. Then there's a drum fill. Then Adrian goes into a tapping part. It's almost like 3 solos in one. I mean, technically it's one solo with a little bit of drum fill in it, but it's like 3 solos in one. It's super long and super progressive. And then after that, after Adrian plays his part, it immediately goes into Davey's solo, which is absolutely crushing. Go back to Tame Land again, where I thought Adrian's solo on Tame Land was better than Dave's solo, because Peace of Mind, let's face it, is Davey's album. Like, his solos on that are just absolutely killer. Somewhere in Time is Adrian's album. However, on this particular song, Adrian has some cool moments and versatility, where there's 3 little interesting sections where he kind of like splits his solo into 3 parts, which is really cool. But Davey's solo is insane. I mean, it's a notch above Adrian's solos, quote unquote, in the song. He has crazy legato playing in it, amazing alternate picking and bending, and then, I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Listen to Alexander the Great, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. After Davey's solo, it goes back into the verse again, back into a chorus, and then Bruce ends it with, "He died of fever in Babylon," and in the continuing main riff with the guitar accents to end the song. And it is, again, just another example of how to write an epic. And it takes the formula that they did with To Tame a Land and a couple other songs we'll get to eventually, and just changes it up again. But this is one of the most progressive epics the band's ever done. And it's so different. And again, I'm going to talk about being biased here. I think the reason why it's so high on the list for me at number 7 is because it's one of the songs that I've always wanted to see live. And it has a connection to me personally. I talk about this all the time. Like, Somewhere in Time is my most relatable album. This is why. I mean, I used to listen to this song. I listened to this song, no joke, when I was writing my thesis paper for probably 4 or 5 months straight, every day back and forth to university when I was writing my paper on Alexander, because I wanted to ingrain the stuff in my head, and it's just that powerful for me. And for me, how I would describe it is it's a complex, progressive, historical sojourn. It reminds me of being in university and studying and writing my thesis when I listen to this song, and it takes me back to my love of Greek mythology, which, again, Matt got me into with Flight of Icarus. Now, granted, this isn't Greek mythology. This is more like Macedonian Greek history, but Ptolemaic history later down the line. You know, one of Alexander's generals was Ptolemy, and they went to Egypt and Alexandria, and that's kind of where the line descended from. And Cleopatra is actually more Greek than she is Egyptian. A lot of people don't know that, but Cleopatra, with the Julius Caesar and the Romans and stuff, her lineage is actually more Greek or Macedonian than it is true Egyptian, because Ptolemy was the general who, when Alexander died and they split up his empire, Ptolemy had Egypt. It's just interesting. I mean, and I'm just sitting here thinking about it because I'm reminiscing about my college years and my experiences, but that is why it's so powerful to me. So it's a very personal song to me, and that's why I love it, and that's why it's number 7. Moving on from Alexander the Great, which is one of my favorite songs from Somewhere in Time. And again, like I said, just a really personal thing for me. I'm just sitting here thinking about it, like, it's, man, the memories with that song, and wow, it's crazy to me. But the last song for today's episode, part 2 of episode 25, Ranking Steve's Epics, number 6, from the Somewhere in Time album in 1986, Caught Somewhere in Time. Basically the title track. Some people might not say that this is an epic and that Alexander the Great is the Steve Harris epic, but I beg to differ. I think that this is just as epic, and it should be considered as an epic on this record, and I'll tell you why. Why is because this sets the tone for the entire album. It's an epic song in its own right, but it's also probably one of the greatest openers of all time. And I know I'm not ranking openers here today, but it's one of the greatest openers of all time. And maybe I'll do a ranking of openers down the line, but it is such a powerful song in the way that captures the artwork of the record, the themes in the record. And again, I'm probably biased because this goes off for me into my love of science fiction, and in particular my favorite science fiction movie of all time and one of my favorite science fiction novels of all time. Up there in the top 5 for me, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Kind of going back to what I said about To Tame a Land, that whole motif, now not this song in general, where To Tame a Land really set the tone for the Dune book. Caught Somewhere in Time isn't technically about Blade Runner. It's not about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, but the kind of like symbolism and how it ties into the artwork and the record, which is based off of Blade Runner and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, is pretty amazing. So it's kind of a different take on it, where To Tame a Land was more like, hey, to the point, like verbatim, using verbiage and words and vocabulary from the actual novel. This doesn't do that, but it sets the tone for the album that is based off of those kind of ideas. And it opens up with just this incredibly amazing, synthy sounding, futuristic guitars. The wow 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 na 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 wow 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 na 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 na. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then after that plays a few times, it goes into the really cool, classic galloping guitar and bass riffs that Iron Maiden's known for, and Bruce comes in with the verse lines. If you had the time to lose, an open mind, a time to choose, would you care to take a look, or can you read me like a book? And then like this almost pre-chorusy thing, like, time is always on my side, time is always on my side, into another verse, and that another pre-chorus, and then another like lyrical bridge thing, like, honestly, just let yourself go. Then there's like this really cool gang 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 bam 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 bam. That part is amazing. Into the actual chorus, caught somewhere in time. Caught somewhere in time. Caught somewhere in time. Whoa, oh. Now, the thing that's cool about this, like, harkening back to what I said about some of the songs on, like, Seventh Son, like the actual title track, Seventh Son of Seventh Son, the way this is, and I talked about this in part 1 of episode 25, some choruses that are a little repetitive actually fit the song better, and this is an example of that. The way Caught Somewhere in Time is sung and how it fits into the instrumentation and the arrangement of the music is perfect. Like, it doesn't feel like it's repetitive. And there is a little subtlety there, because Bruce has the oh added to it, and it's not the same thing. It's Caught Somewhere in Time, and then he draws out ta, and so I mean it's a little bit different the way it's spoken. And you can kind of see it on this album in general, like in Somewhere in Time. Like, Heaven Can Wait has that kind of, like, similar kind of thing. They're like, heaven can wait, heaven can wait, heaven can wait, heaven can wait till another day. It's not the exact same, like, seventh son of seventh son of a seventh son, seventh son, you know what I mean? It's to contrast them. It's just a more melodic and sound way to execute the chorus. Yes, it's a little repetitive, but it doesn't diminish the song, where I feel like the seventh son of a seventh son song, its chorus, diminished that song. This does not. I feel like it fits perfectly into everything, the way it's structured. So, after that, it goes into like another bridge part, and that whole part. And then it goes into Davy's solo, which is absolutely incredible. Then after Davy's solo, it goes into Adrian's solo, which is one of my favorites. Like, it's an underrated solo. I mean, he's pretty much known for on this record the Wasted Years solo and the Stranger and Strange solo. And don't get me wrong, those solos are unbelievable. But this one, take another look at it. It's really cool. I think it's underrated. It's one of my favorites. He has this really cool, like, ascending part and descending part. And then at the end, he has, like, a really cool tapping bit. And the thing that's cool about Davy's solo and Adrian's solo on this song is they're longer. Like, they're a lot longer than some of the solos that came before on, like, the previous records up to this point. Like, they're more progressive. Like, we're talking about, like, a solo that's, let's say one from Power Slave or Number of the Beast or Peace of Mind is 15 seconds. These are like 25, 30-second solos. Like, they're double in length. Like, they're longer and they're more, like, dynamic. And that's what I love about this song and I love about this record. So there's that piece to it. And then after Adrian's solo, it goes back into the main riff and kind of finishes up the song. There's a couple more verse lines and more chorus, and it kind of wraps it up. Now, that being said, why it's ranked at number 6 for me is just because, like I said, the way it sets up the album, the structure. And if you listen to the song and you put on Somewhere in Time, and it's the first thing it opens up, I mean, it's insane to me. Like, to this day, when I listen to this record and it comes on, like, even if I have, like, my music on my iPhone on shuffle when I'm driving Bluetooth, down the road, and this pops on, I'm like, oh, shit. And then, like, I'll expect Wasted Years, like, immediately after it, but then I realize it's on shuffle. I'm like, oh, man. But because I'm so used to this just being like, man, I can't wait to dive into this record. And the listenability on this is awesome. I mean, it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. And this sets that up perfectly. And I talked about this in the podcast before. This song and what it means and what it encapsulates and how it really does push that idea of progress for the band forward and sets that foundation of what they are to become modern day. It is a genesis, and much like To Tame a Land, it's a glimpse into the future to a certain extent. It's like the first time where Maiden has these synths and these keyboards, and they've been that way ever since. Like, it's the very foundation almost of what Iron Maiden is and what they become. And like I said, with Peace of Mind, with Tame a Land, that song, I mean, you could take Tame a Land and put it on Somewhere in Time. You could take it and put it on a new record. You could put it on Final Frontier. You could put it on Brave New World. It's same thing with some of these songs. You could take, Somewhere in Time and throw it on Senjutsu or throw it on Final Frontier. I mean, that's who the band is now. Like, they have this really diverse array of songs that are proggy and that are longer in length. They're more experimental. They're more dynamic. They're more interesting. They're not quite as straightforward. They're more mature. They're more emotional. And that's what this song is too. It's a more emotional song. It's a more mature song. It's philosophical. When we talked about this, when we talked about the Somewhere in Time album, if you look at that album as a whole and you go down the list, there's not really, there might be one or two songs on it that actually talk about, like, Alexander the Great, historical figure, like it's based on something. The rest of the album really isn't. It's more loosely based on some things, ideas. Caught Somewhere in Time, Wasted Years, Sea of Madness, Heaven Can Wait, Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, Stranger in a Strange Land, Deja Vu, like that whole thing, like, it plays with a lot of different themes, and I think it turns out really, really well. I think they turned out something amazing with this record, and it's of the 80s. This and Power Slave, I said this before, are like my favorite records from the 80s. And this one's Slight Edge, because Adrian, right? And Blade Runner. and that whole thing, the Julian Schumer, Electric Sheep, and Alexander the Great, like, slight edge. But in order to sum this up, my final thoughts on it would be the genesis of modern Maiden. This song is the genesis of modern Maiden. And I know I said this when I talked about To Tame a Land and the Peace of Mind record, but where To Tame a Land had that, it wasn't quite fully fleshed out yet. It was a nice glimpse of it, but this is like the fully fleshed out, hey, here's synths and keyboards, and this is what Maiden sounds like. This is what progressive, quote-unquote, Maiden sounds like. And, yeah, I mean, that's where it's at, and that's why it's at number 6. So, this is the last song on part 2 of episode 25, Ranking Steve's Epics. Like I said, I'm going to do a part 3, episode 25 of Ranking Steve's Epics. It's going to be the top 5 songs. But I hope you enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun doing these rankings the last 2 episodes. So, thanks for listening to A Matter of Life and Maiden, the podcast of the Beast. I am Joe Labriola. Make sure you get a chance to go out and see Iron Maiden on the Future Past Tour in 2024 if you can. And everybody take care of yourselves out there. And be good to each other. I'll be back with part 3 of episode 25 next time. Ranking Steve's Epics. Take care.